it's Teresa, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be filming my October reading wrap-up. Off the top of my head, I can't recall how many books I read, so I need to check Goodreads. So according to Goodreads, I read 11 books this month, but 2 of them were DNF, so I guess they don't really count. But anyway, let's go ahead and jump right into it. So the very first book I started this month, I also ended up DNFing, unfortunately, and that was Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. I'm sure everybody knows what this book is about, so I won't even go into that too much, but let's just say that this is not for me. I think I read only about 120 pages of this before I couldn't stomach it anymore. I get that a lot of people feel like this is really interesting because of the historical aspects, and I do see the merit to that, but I just cannot stand the romance stuff. And I mean, I feel like it wasn't even that much quite yet, but I just could tell what direction it was gonna go into, and it was killing me. And I don't like Jamie Fraser. He's just like trying too hard to be a good guy among all the bad guys, and I just like, I honestly hate DNFing books, especially if it's something that I was like looking forward to reading, because this time, once again, it put me in a reading slump, and for like the first 1.5 weeks of October, I didn't read really anything except for this, and yeah, no, didn't like it. The second book I read this month, well, actually the first book I actually finished this month was Konbini Ningen by Murata Sayaka. This is actually a Japanese book that I borrowed from the library because a friend recommended it to me, and I loved this one so much. Oh, it was so good. It was really simple to read, like language-wise, which was super motivating. Obviously I did have to look up some things, but nevertheless, I loved how smoothly it went for like longer stretches at a time, and I learned really interesting, questionably usable vocabulary, like bookie. I'm not gonna tell you what that means, so just gonna have to look it up. Basically, this book follows a woman who's kind of considered to be an outsider, so she's always felt like left out. People have been making fun of her and haven't really accepted her, mainly just because she was different. All through her life, and now she is an adult. She, I think she's in her 30s, in her late 30s, and she works part-time in a konbini, which is a Japanese convenience store. And if you've never been to Japan or you don't know anything about Japan, then that probably doesn't mean anything to you, but they're a very specific concept that really only exists in that form in Japan, and just reading about them like made me so nostalgic. The main character feels really at home at the konbini, and she loves the atmosphere and like feels like that's like where she's finally kind of like been accepted. She keeps saying that she's been reborn when she entered working there, which again is a very Japanese I feel like style of thinking, that like work becomes this like all-encompassing thing for you, or like self-defining thing. She still faces a lot of struggles though, because she is kind of the opposite of what Japanese people would consider a shakaijin, which literally means society person, so like a full member of society. Because she is in her late 30s, she's not married, she doesn't have children, she doesn't have a career, all she does is work part-time in a konbini. Like all her friends and like her family are kind of like, oh, when are you gonna get married? Like, don't you want someone? Like, you should look for someone, and things like that. So they're kind of always on her case about that. And basically, the book just follows her as she, like, unapologetically just keeps being herself and kind of keeps doing what she thinks is right and, like, what feels good for her and, like, what fits her personal, like, lifestyle choices and all that stuff. So I really appreciate the book for that. I thought it was really enjoyable, kind of funny, even though there were some parts of it that I felt like kind of seemed like unrealistic, or like I was like, how the hell do you get from there to there? Like, what? But I still really enjoyed it, and if you are a Japanese learner, I recommend reading this because it's fun and it gives great insights into Japanese society. And then came the Spookathon, which you can watch the whole wrap-up of everything I read during that week, and a little bit before and a little bit after, but I'm just gonna quickly mention the books I read in that time. Dragonfish by Vu Tran, Detective Conan Volume 87 by Gosho Aoyama, Bird Box by Josh Malerman, and Grotesque by Natsu Kirino. I will link the wrap-up for those in the little information thing up there. Then after the Spookathon, I randomly signed up for an Audible trial from Amazon where you get like 3 months for free, and I was like, okay, let's just see. And I listened to the audiobook called So Much I Want to Tell You by Anna Akana. She recently came out with like a short film based on a chapter in the book, which is why it raised my attention, I guess. It got my attention, and I have noticed, while I don't particularly like listening to audiobooks, I don't mind quite as much when they're like memoirs or non-fiction, because it doesn't really seem like a story. It seems like facts or someone just like explaining things to me, like giving me information, especially in this case because Anna Akana was the one narrating it, and I really like her voice and I like watching her videos, so I like the experience of it, I guess. This is a very short audiobook. I think it was only about 3 hours or so I was able to blaze through it in a few days, and I ended up giving it 2 stars though, because I just didn't feel like, well, I probably wasn't a target audience for it, but I literally don't think that I like learned anything from it or like they got anything out of it. Essentially, it's just like a bunch of like tips on like different life things, like relationships, friendships, career, like how to manage your life, that type of thing. And well, bits and pieces of it I think were useful, like that made me think or whatever. Like there was nothing groundbreaking or nothing that I hadn't encountered before, and also because the subtitle of the book is like Letters to My Little Sister, and if you didn't know, her little sister committed suicide I think 10 years ago. Like that obviously I felt like there'd be much more kind of in relation to that, and while she does mention her sister a lot and sort of dedicates the whole book to her, I don't think that it like, I feel like it's kind of like a misrepresentation of the actual content in a way. But yeah, if you're a huge fan of Anna Akana, or like you're maybe younger, like a teenager, and you want a book on like life tips for a lot of different areas, and I'm sure this would be fun for you. I also started reading an arc that I got from NetGalley this month, and it is called The Tattooist of Auschwitz by Heather Morris. This is another non-fiction book, and I think in this case the author talked to the kind of main character of the book, or like the person who the book is about, and he kind of told her his life story, and then she started writing it down. And it basically is about a man who is put into Auschwitz, and who rises up the ranks there kind of to become the tattooist, and he just tattoos people that are new, like gives them, you know, their number, their serial number basically. I just didn't feel like the book was for me, and it's really hard to say it about like a memoir, like a non-fiction book that like is about such a huge tragedy as that. And I don't want to be insensitive by saying that the book wasn't really appealing to me, but that's kind of what happened. Like I just didn't find it particularly interesting, and I have read several books like set in World War II times before, and I mean, maybe it was my fault for even requesting this arc, because like while reading it again I realized like I really am so burnt out on World War II novels. They're just like so emotionally hard to read. At least the ones I've read all seem to be sort of, or many seem to be sort of the same story. And again, it sounds horrible when you tell like someone like, oh, your story is just the same as somebody else's, and it's probably not, it's definitely not, but like I just like emotionally couldn't get myself to keep reading this. It just didn't feel like it was anything special, and I didn't want to continue basically. The next book I read I was so pleasantly surprised by, oh my god, and that was The Girl with All the Gifts by Emma Cary. This is the most unique zombie novel I have ever read or encountered. I don't think I've read that many zombie novels, but this was magnificent. I don't want to give away too much of it because a lot of it is really like revealed through exploration of the story and stuff like that, so don't want to spoil you guys, but basically it's about this girl called Melanie who lives in a cell, and every day she gets picked up by guards and they take her to lessons with her teachers, and she learns about the world. And I don't even want to say more than that. I know that's a really crappy synopsis, but this book is so good. Oh my god, if you haven't read this or come across this, I highly recommend checking it out. The main reason why I love this book so much is because there's so much science behind the zombie situation. Like a lot of zombie stories or like movies or books or whatever, they're like very like action, murder type of stories, and I just feel like that's so boring. And this has so much interesting, fascinating science behind the zombie outbreak that I just like, every time there's like one doctor as like main character in the book, and every time like she was describing something new, I was like, oh my god, I need more of this. I would read like a scientific book written on this topic because it's so fascinating. I love that part of it. I love the characters. They're all very endearing in their own way, and I just like love their little mashup of different characters. Like eclectic group of characters really is what it is, and what they end up being, like a group of them. And I don't want to say any more than that, but it's so good. And I know there's a sequel or prequel that just came out this year, I think. I'm gonna wait until February when the paperback is released because I want these to match, but honestly, it's been like over a week since I've read this and I can't get it out of my head. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. I didn't give it 5 because I felt like there was just like something special missing to bump it up to 5 stars, but still, fantastic novel, you have to read it. The second to last book I read this month was actually a reread, and that was the graphic novel Through the Woods by Emily Carroll. If you follow me on Instagram, you saw me post it, because literally this book is such a quick read. It is kind of like a collection of, I think, 5 short stories that are all really creepy and spooky, and I read it for the first time I think 3 years ago now, and I loved it, and I basically had forgotten everything. Like, I didn't know the endings of the stories anymore, and they're all quite open-ended anyway, but still, I wanted to give them that a go because I feel like this is such a nice and titillating read for this time of year, and I really enjoyed it again. I think I gave it 4 stars or something. It's really fun. Not fun, it's really scary. It's a really good read, and I recommend reading it either Halloween, well, Halloween is already passed by the time you see this, but I recommend any time to read it, like at night when it's dark, maybe raining, stormy, something like that, maybe snowing. That's probably the best time to read this because it's so nice and spooky, but yeah, I really loved it. And finally, the last book I finished this month was another ARC, and this is Artemis by Andy Weir. I also got this from NetGalley, and this time I finished the ARC, but I almost wish I hadn't. I haven't even read The Martian yet, even though I do own it, and this is the newest book by Andy Weir. It comes out on the 14th, I think, of November. And it is set on the moon in this town called Artemis, and it follows this young woman called Jazz, who is sort of a criminal in a way, like a petty criminal kind of. She smuggles goods into Artemis, but then one time she gets a job to do like a sort of heist sabotage thing and gets herself in way over her head, and like stuff ensues. And it's obviously all set in space, which complicates matters a lot. So my biggest issue with this book wasn't the story. I quite enjoyed the story. I quite liked the pacing, I liked the writing style, even though there wasn't anything like spectacular about that either. But my problem, honestly, was the main character. And I feel like this just is like proof that some male authors are just like incapable of writing female characters or like understanding women in general. Jazz as a woman feels like a weird conglomerate of random traits that are stereotypically classified as female, and that's why she is like that, but like for no apparent reason, and they don't make sense among each other. Like, I'm not sure if I'm explaining this correctly, but she just like does not read like a real person or a real woman, and it's so awkward. There are so many scenes where she's extremely cringeworthy because she's also overly sexual and keeps making random inappropriate sexual innuendos and jokes, even when the situation is like really action-packed and suspenseful, and I feel like that really ruined the mood a lot of the times. On the other end of the spectrum, she's also extremely aggressive constantly and like really rude to everybody, especially the people trying to help her, and she is just the worst character that I've read in such a long time, and like I could not stand anything that she was saying or doing or thinking again because it did not feel like a real person. I think I'll do a dedicated review on this book because I do want to rant about it a bit more, but that's basically the gist of it. Hated the main character, give the book 2 stars. Yeah. Don't read it if you don't absolutely want to. And that's it for everything that I read in the month of October. I had like a mixed reading month. I read a few good things, a few bad things, DNF'd a few things, so everything was in there, I feel like. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Let me know in the comments down below what you read this month. What was your favorite book that you picked up and finished? And I will see you soon with another video. Have a lovely week. Bye!